saw an opportunity to build a platform where they could thrive, they could find a safe space for conversations, for networking. My biggest lessons is you don't need all the answers on day one. Your network is your strongest career asset. Your network can open doors for you that other things can't. We don't network just for ourselves. We network to help other people and pay it forwards. A sponsor is somebody who will speak on your behalf when you're not in the room. We shouldn't need women in payments. Dream big because it costs the same as dreaming small.
Welcome to the CanadianSME Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Kripa Anand, and you're watching our exclusive series, She and Success, where we spotlight the women entrepreneurs making waves in today's business landscape. In this series, we highlight the stories and journeys of inspiring women who are leading the way in business, offering valuable insights to help others start and grow their own ventures. Joining us today is Kristy Duncan, founder and CEO of Women in Payments, a growing global community dedicated to giving women the tools and strategies to connect ambition with achievement in financial services. So before further ado, let's welcome her. Kristy, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Thanks so much, Kripa. I'm delighted to be here.
It's our pleasure. Now, Kristy, starting a business requires both vision and resilience, right? Especially when it's driven by a purpose that challenges the status quo. You stepped off the corporate ladder at a big bank to become an entrepreneur and founded Women in Payments. So let's start by understanding what motivated you to make that bold decision and how did that story begin? Go ahead.
Yeah, great question. So I really saw an opportunity, having worked in the big corporate world for a number of years. I saw an opportunity that we could create for women to build a platform, to give them an environment where they could thrive, they could find a safe space for conversations, for learning, for networking, and connecting with each other to help. They often say that a rising tide floats all boats. And if we bring women up, if we give them that platform, then they can thrive and pass it on to others.
Wow, that's a very wholesome point of view. Also, if I were to ask you, Kristy, if there's one key lesson that you think you've learned throughout your journey, what would you say?
Gosh, so many lessons.
Yeah.
I always say I've made so many mistakes. I've learned a lot. For me, I think it was my biggest lessons is you don't need all the answers on day one.
Right.
That there's going to be things that you figure out along the way, and having confidence to believe in yourself that, we're smart people and we can navigate some of these challenges, and oh my gosh, I've never encountered this before. How do I do that? And sometimes you just sit down and kind of wrangle through it yourself. But other times you draw on your network.
Right.
And you can, it's like that call a friend on the game show. When you say, oh, I don't know this, but I know that somebody else has done this before or has experience with this. So I'm going to call them or drop them an email and say, can you help me out here? I'm just looking for some guidance.
Wow, that is an incredibly, courageous leap, and it truly speaks volumes about your conviction and belief in, your purpose to leave an established career for an entrepreneurial path. Now, Kristy, let's dive into building an inclusive culture, how it can propel business success and innovation. Now, creating an inclusive culture is essential to, driving both innovation and business success. You advocate strongly for building inclusive workplaces, right? Emphasizing that diversity must be a part of a business's DNA from the early stages. So what is the compelling business case for diverse teams? And, if you could suggest any practical steps that small business owners can listen and learn, what would you say?
Great question. So diversity, it's been proven in many studies that the more diverse our senior leadership teams, the higher our employee engagement, the more patents we file as corporations. There's a study that showed that
Yeah.
X% more patents were filed by companies with more women in leadership levels.
Wow.
We've also seen studies showing that you've got higher employee engagement, longer retention, and employees really get motivated when they can see women at leadership levels. So when I was earlier in my career, I couldn't see women in leadership levels, and you can't be what you can't see. So that was really something that didn't motivate me to stay and try to kind of break through that glass ceiling. In terms of practical steps, I think there was a great study that was done in the UK going back to about 2018, 2017,
Mm-hmm.
and it was called Empowering Productivity, Harnessing the Talents of Women in Financial Services. And it was co-sponsored by HM Treasury. And as a Canadian, had to ask, what's HM Treasury? And of course, Kristy, it's Her Majesty's Treasury, now His Majesty's Treasury, with one of the banks in the UK at the time. And they did a lot of field research, and they came up with a number of recommendations. And the three main ones were, number one, for financial services organizations,
Mm-hmm.
not just banks, but insurance companies and fintechs and everybody participating in that whole ecosystem, to develop and publish a gender diversity strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And by publishing it, they meant not just publishing it on day one, but updating it every year. How is your progress against your stated goals coming along year over year? So that was the first recommendation. The second one was to appoint a senior executive to be responsible for the success of their gender diversity strategy. And now you could even expand that to say their overall diversity strategy. And they specifically said that this executive should be from a line of business, a profit center, and not an admin function like HR or one of the nonprofit.
The other departments, yeah.
Yes. And thirdly, they said, and this really puts teeth into that strategy, they recommended that the compensation of the senior leadership of each organization should be in some way tied to the success of the strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's no longer just a box that you tick. It's something that really needs to filter into the DNA of the organization to ensure success. And also, when you're publicly updating your strategy every year, then you're going out on a public basis to say, okay, this is how much progress we've made against our targets.
Wow, that is very well articulated and, a very clear and strategic argument for diversity. And it's not just about fairness, right? It's about measurable business outcomes, which is crucial for our listeners to understand. Now, also I'd like to conclude by saying that research from organizations like MHFA England indicates that, microaggressions, for instance, can lead to decreased job satisfaction and, increased turnover, highlighting the direct business impact of a non-inclusive environment. On that note, have you ever felt in your career that, you are going through that microaggression phase?
I shouldn't laugh. I think I would guess that many, if not most, women have experienced that one time in their career, if not more. The one that I've often shared with people is when I was working at a big bank and walked into a meeting. I was new in the role, and I had just got my new business cards, and I handed out my business cards to everybody in the room, and one of the men picked up my business card and he looks at it and he says, "Oh, Kristy, I see you're an engineer." And I responded, yes, I was so proud that I had my engineering degree. And then he said, "What kind of engineer are you? A household engineer?"
Oh my God.
Which to this day, decades later, still stings.
Of course.
And those kind of microaggressions are absolutely not necessary and shouldn't be tolerated in a work environment or in any environment for that matter. But that was one of the motivations for me to create Women in Payments, was to create a safe space where we're free from those kinds of microaggressions and we can really thrive and support each other.
Again, that's a very wholesome perspective, and I truly, believe that more and more people should become more sensitive towards this. Are you committed to building a workplace where everyone can thrive? Remember, creating an inclusive culture benefits your teams and your bottom line. Now let's get back to our conversation with Kristy and explore the power of collaboration among women entrepreneurs. Now, building a strong community of women entrepreneurs is essential for fostering mutual growth and support. We've established that. You advocate for collaboration over competition among women entrepreneurs, right? So, from a community driven perspective, how exactly can mentorship, shared learning, and building strong networks, like we talked about, truly empower women in business and create a rising tide that lifts all women led businesses? And this answer, I'm sure all the women listeners in the audience will want to know this. So go ahead. What would you like to say to them?
Oh gosh, well, this could be a very long answer. I'll try to keep it short.
Yeah.
So we've got a number of things. We've got networking, we've got mentoring, we've got sponsoring. I'll start with networking because I've often said, and I've been quoted many times on this, that your network is your strongest career asset.
Yeah.
More often than your knowledge or your experience, your network can open doors for you that other things can't. So I advocate networking for a number of different reasons. First, of course, to learn
Right.
from others, because so much of what we do today and the way the market is evolving so quickly, we learn from other people. You can't learn it on a textbook and online learning. We do need to do continuous learning, but that's one way is learning from other people. But also, networking is a fantastic way to find opportunities. Rather than wait for that perfect job to be posted on some job board,
Right.
we often can find opportunities through networking. And it can be networking internally, it can be networking externally.
Totally. Yeah.
And not only finding opportunities for ourselves, but finding opportunities for our teams, for our organizations. Oh, somebody's putting out an RFP. We should bid on that because we've got fantastic qualifications and can deliver really well. But it's also opportunities for people. And that kind of helps to build the whole circle of networking, because we don't network just for ourselves.
Right.
We network to help other people and pay it forward. So if I'm having a coffee with somebody and they say, oh, I'm looking for somebody to do a panel discussion on X at a conference, then I can think, oh, I know the perfect person, and I can connect them and introduce them and make that introduction. From a mentorship perspective, mentoring is such a powerful tool that we can and should use to our advantage in our careers, but also outside, in our lives. And we learn from our mentors. We learn from our mentees as well. That concept of reverse mentorship is so powerful. I often say that women and men can learn from their mentees in a number of different ways. They can reflect their own leadership style in the eyes of the young mentor, a mentee, and adjust it to be more relevant to that mentee. We can also learn about the corporate culture as seen through the eyes of the mentee. And as leaders, we can adjust that corporate culture to make it more welcoming and supportive of that next generation coming through the ranks. I also love the concept of a peer mentor.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell a little story here. I had a woman on one of our advisory boards talk about her company had signed her up for a peer mentoring course, and she was working, peer mentoring program. And she was working at a big bank, and she got paired with a peer mentor from packaged goods. And she said, what is this all about? What do I have in common with someone from packaged goods? And she said, well, now I've been signed up for this program. I better at least go have a coffee with them. So she went and had coffee, and 2 hours later came out And she said it was the most enlightening experience because
Wow.
even though they were working in different industries, there's still commonalities. And she said for the next 2 months, they were texting back and forth every day. She said, because I was going through an internal reorganization and I'd never done it before. And she had done it before. And so she had all kinds of tips and tricks to help me navigate this reorg within her own organization.
Wow.
And so there are transferable skills that even in different industries, we can share and help support our peers
Right.
at different organizations. So that I found really powerful. Before we get off this topic of mentorship, I also want to touch quickly on sponsorship.
Mm-hmm.
And a mentor is somebody who gives you guidance and can help you through certain situations. So I also want to talk about sponsorship because a sponsor is somebody who will speak on your behalf when you're not in the room.
Right.
And there's a great story of this woman in the UK who wasn't looking for a job, but she had a sponsor who called her up one day and said, just so you know, your name might be on a list to interview for a role that I think you'd be really good at. And I know the role's in New York, and I know you're not mobile, but just for the experience,
Right.
just go for the interview and tell me how it went. And so she went for the interview, and she said it went really well. She called him up and said, yeah, it went really well. He said, oh, glad to hear it. I thought it might. He said, now, just in case you get offered the job, promise me you won't respond for at least 72 hours. He said, I know you're not mobile, and I know it's a lateral move, but it is another city in another country, and you could get some great experience. And she said, okay, 72 hours, and that takes me over the weekend. So she went home and talked to her partner, and they thought about it, and they deliberated, and back the following week after 72 hours, she responded and accepted. And she said, you know what? It's great experience. I get to learn about a new market. And thank you to my sponsor for guiding me through this process and giving me the confidence and walking me through different ways to view the new opportunity, because I might not have accepted it had that not happened.
Wow, that is again a very powerful and beautiful story. And I must say that it's a blessing to have such sponsors and such mentors in your life, right? All right, we're going to take a quick break right here, but don't go anywhere. Stay tuned.
Hey, you think you know UPS? Yeah, that's us. Everybody knows that. You know what you didn't know? This. Okay, try to keep up. Ocean, us. Ground, rail, air, so us. Guess who? Us. Customs cleared, borders cleared, done. Us. You still with me? Wait for it. Boom. Us. Intelligent, automated, fulfillment. Us. Yep, healthcare too. Digital your thing? Yeah, well, book it, ship it, track it. You feeling me yet? Yep, that's all us. That's all UPS.
Alright, we're back. Let's dive right back into how mentorship and collaboration can uplift women entrepreneurs and drive mutual growth in business. Do you think if anyone is not having such a person in their life, can they do something to attract such people?
That's a great question. And I've often said that was one thing I regret, was not getting a mentor or a sponsor earlier in my career. There are many ways to get mentors. There are mentorship programs. There are typically internally within organizations, they often have mentorship programs.
Right.
There are public mentorship programs that you can sign up for. Women in Payments has a mentorship program that we run twice a year. It's a year-long program. Sometimes you find people who will act as informal mentors that you might, have a coffee with and then say, this has been really productive and helpful for me. Do you mind if we do it again in 6 months?
Right.
and those are often nice, and the person hopefully will be honest, and I think my recommendation there is please, if you're looking for a mentor, be respectful of their time, because the higher you get up in the hierarchy, the more valuable your time becomes.
Right.
So being respectful of people's time is helpful. But also peer mentoring. And you can find 2 or 3 peer mentors that you might agree to go for lunch with every
Right.
month or so, or go for a drink with every month or so, because you can learn a lot from them and you can help them in return. So great opportunities. And it's the kind of thing that if you just sit in the corner doing your job really well, then you don't find those things. You do kind of have to put yourself out there and make a commitment to committing to spending time on
Right.
building your career. And mentorship and sponsorship is really important.
Wow. Again, thank you so much for highlighting that and educating us about that. Now, moving forward, Kristy, expanding globally requires not just scaling operations, but also understanding and connecting with diverse cultures and markets to, foster meaningful relationships. Women in Payments operates in 7 global markets. What are some of the key lessons you've learned in, fostering global connections and building a worldwide community into the payments industry? And do you do anything specifically to diverse your programs or expand into new markets like the Middle East, where digital payment trends are now rapidly growing?
Great question. And I love this question because, yes, as we expand, and we're now in 7 markets, next year will be 9 markets globally. It's
Wow.
very, very exciting. And what I love is being able to bring this platform to build a global community for women, by women around the world of payments, as I say.
Right.
We are a 2-part brand. We are all about payments, and we're all about diversity. So, as you say, every single market in the world is quite different when it comes to both
Right.
payments as well as diversity. So, what we do in particular is we set up an advisory board of senior women, mostly women, some men,
Right.
male allies, leaders in each market. And we rely on them to provide guidance and input on how do we resonate and provide a program, deliver programs that resonate in that market.
Right.
We want to be relevant in each market. So we have now got 7 advisory boards of senior women in each of our markets: Australia, Canada,
Wow.
US,
So exciting.
Singapore, Middle East now, EMEA. And it's been really, really informative for us. And we try to make sure that these women come from across the whole payments ecosystem. So not just the banks, not just the payment networks, but also the regulators, the fintechs, the consultants, the legal people, because they all have different perspectives and they're all important stakeholders across the ecosystem.
Wow, that's a fascinating insight into building a global organization, and we're very proud of all the achievements, that have happened so far, and wishing you more and more success, Kristy. If I were to give you a time machine right now and say you were to travel 10 or 15 years down into the future, how exactly would you envision women in payments then?
Oh, great question. Women in payments, we have this vision of gender parity at leadership levels across our industry. And what we're trying to do is give women the tools to connect their ambition with their achievements. And so by building this platform, hopefully we'll be in 50 markets 10 years from now. But ultimately, we shouldn't need women in payments. We shouldn't need that platform because we have achieved our vision of gender parity. So it would be a bittersweet moment to step back from women in payments and not
Right,
need
because
us.
there is nothing like men in payments, right? So
Not
I
yet.
understand what you mean. Yeah.
No. But we do love our male allies.
Yes,
and
of course.
we rely on them to support us and to help bridge the gap in gender parity across the whole industry.
Wow, the future definitely looks very promising. Now, before we let you go, Kristy, if there's one piece of final advice that you have for our listeners today, something that you want them to take away from this entire discussion, what would it be and why?
I will quote one of our keynotes from Latin America a couple of years ago,
Mhm.
Rocio Velarde from Citibank, who said, "Dream big because it costs the same as dreaming small."
Wow, that is so powerful.
Indeed, indeed. And I started off dreaming small, but the more I pushed the boundaries, the more I pushed, the more I asked for help, the more I built my network, the more I learned from others, the more Women in Payments grew. And it's surprising how generous people are when you ask for help. And I asked many strangers for help, and most of the time got, nothing but smiles back, which was really lovely. So I figure as long as we keep getting support from the market, we will keep pushing it on our agendas. And it's been really wonderful to see how global organizations, global banks, global payment networks, global tech firms have really supported our agenda in many, many markets around the world. As you mentioned, we're launching in the Middle East this year, and the reception that we've got there has been overwhelming, and we're really, really excited. And it will hopefully help us launch next year into other markets in Asia and beyond.
Amazing. Kristy, I've loved each second of this conversation. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your expertise with me, with our audience, and we're very grateful that you took time for this.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
All right, that was an insightful conversation with Kristy Duncan, founder and CEO of Women in Payments, on her entrepreneurship journey, the strategic importance of building inclusive workplaces, and the power of collaboration among women entrepreneurs. Women in Payments is a global community supporting women's ambition and achievements in financial services. We also want to highlight their exciting expansion into the Middle East with their first conference in Dubai this November. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast, and we really appreciate your continued support. Also, be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more expert insights and resources that can help your business thrive. Also, don't forget to visit our website, CanadianSME.ca. And lastly, a very special thank you to our podcast partners, RBC, UPS, A1 Global College, ADP, and Google for their ongoing commitment to empowering small businesses. Until next time, keep innovating and striving for success, and we'll see you in the next episode. Kripa Anand signing off.